What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Crew 2. And well, as y'all know, it is Season 9, Episode 1, which is said to be the last big update on the Crew 2. And with that, we also got a lot of awesome summits to go along. So, the first one's going to be the 5th anniversary of the Crew 2, which is honestly insane. The fact this game has actually been out for 5 years. But in Platinum, guys, we have the anniversary tire, which I do have to admit actually looks pretty awesome. You also see like a 2 in the middle. Looking forward to seeing how that's going to look, especially on the monster trucks and or some of the Alpha GP vehicles. But in gold though, we have the Lamborghini Aventador LP 704. So this is also going to be a great opportunity to get some of these cars. That way you guys don't actually have to buy them and you can get them as like a reward from these summits. It could be a quick way to get some extra vehicles, especially before Motorfest does release. And then in silver, we have the legendary half set for the hypercar category, which is also going to be one of the best sets to make money as well, which is bucks and or followers. And this is also going to be a fame magnet set, so I would recommend going after these guys because for one, you can make a ton of money. This is actually how I have made well over $80 million as well. I basically jump into all of the hyper events with like a fame magnet set, and then I do put all of my icon points on bucks as well, so you can make a lot of money doing this. I would recommend going after these sets and or the cars that do come out in these summits. But moving over to the next one though, the Road to Oahu. Honestly guys, this is going to be a really fun one. For one, we also have the Mazda RX-3, which is going to be in the bronze as a reward, which is kind of odd, but at least it is going to be another vehicle we can get. Then we're also going to have the gold tint there in silver, and the golden wings in gold as well, which is kind of funny. There's a lot of gold going around. Then we're going to have the golden drift tire there in platinum, which I would say on some of the drift cars is actually going to look pretty sweet. But moving over to the next one, obviously the Audi Attic. And in platinum, we have the Nitro Chemist boosted for the street class, which I would say any Nitro Chemist set is going to be useful. I also cannot wait to jump onto Motorfest and really see how the Nitro Chemist and or the part sets and or fix its stats are actually going to be different than the Crew 2 because I do feel like it's going to be changed in most likely a pretty positive way. But in gold though, we have the Audi RS2 Avant, which I would say those parts are probably going to be useful. That way you don't have to spend money on some of the parts on that vehicle. But in silver, guys, we have the dark purple Nitro, which I would say is going to look pretty cool on some vehicles. But moving over to the next summit, the Magic City's coming back once again, guys. This is actually a pretty old summit. I do remember this one actually being in like the top 3,000 for this car. I also do believe back in the day I got like 2,900 indoor 95. I was insanely close of not getting this vehicle back then, but the Bugatti Veyron Edition 1 is actually going to be a pretty awesome looking car. And to most people, it might honestly just be another Bugatti, but this car actually does look pretty dang cool, especially like the gold accents going around it. And then in gold, we have the legendary half set boosted for the hypercars, which is the other part of the Fame Magnet set that's back in this summit over here. So I would definitely recommend going after this one, guys. It's going to be a great way to make a lot of money. And then in silver, we have the yellow speed vortex smoke, which looks insanely weird, but overall, it does look like the last season on the Crew 2 here is definitely shaping up to be pretty awesome. I'm also insanely excited to do the Magic City Summit once again, guys. It's crazy how old some of these summits actually are, and at least it's giving players a chance to get these cars. And then moving over to the 5th anniversary summit here, guys, starting off with the Escape. So for this one, it is going to be with the boat. So for me, I did decide to run the 1414 Demon, which to be honest, I would say basically everybody is indeed going to use this boat. And of course, it probably is going to be like the best boat, especially for these escapes. And that's mainly going to come down to how well this boat actually does handle its overall speed. But moving over to the next skill is going to be a slalom. And for this one, you guys probably guessed it. I once again use the Ford Mustang GT monster truck. Sure, it's probably not going to be like the fastest vehicle out there, which is kind of obvious, considering it's an actual monster truck, but I still got 155,000 points with this thing. And the funny thing is, I also missed the last checkpoint, so I probably would have got a little over 31,000 points. But if you guys did want to mess around with some funny vehicles, the monster trucks do actually work on most of these. Of course, you are going to need a score breaker set, but Moving over to the last skill is going to be an aerobatics, and for this one I did run the Zivko Edge 540 V3. This really is going to be one of the best overall planes to use basically in the entire air race category, and it's kind of funny because you can also use these in the aerobatic skills, and funnily enough guys, I also threw on a nitrochemist set on the Zivko Edge, and also did the first event with this plane as well, which of course you can use other ones, but I've been basically running the Zivko for an insanely long time, and this plane has never let me down. I would recommend trying this plane out though if you guys have not. It really is a great overall plane to use. And of course in Motorfest the planes are going to be slightly different, which I can't wait to test those out as well. But moving over to the next event though is going to be a street race. And for this one you actually have to use the Alfa Romeo Outclassed Edition. I do believe you say that like the Giulia and or Giulia, one of the two, but this is also going to be one of the events that was from that update with all the insane storms. Obviously the name of the update was Into the Storm, but overall though guys, this race really isn't going to be bad. The biggest thing I could recommend to do though is to basically keep your finger on the analog stick a little bit. That way the car doesn't go to the left, because obviously the wind is going to be pushing you pretty hard to that side. So I would recommend doing that because it did seem to help tremendously. And then moving over to the next event is going to be a Rallycross race, and you also get to use the new Lancia Stratos HFGR4, and seeing this Lancia being added into this game was definitely a great sight to see. I do want to mention, by the way guys, I will be posting all of these new vehicles in the coming weeks, so definitely stay tuned. And overall, from doing this race with the Lancia, I have to admit, this car really does seem to be pretty dang good overall, especially its handling. I will be testing out the Lancia against other Rallycross cars because I would say the Lancia is actually a great competitor. But moving over to the next event guys, you will have to use a Jetsprint boat. I do know a lot of players are definitely not the biggest fan of these races, which I honestly can't blame you. The Jetsprint boats in general are not going to be the most fun thing to use, especially in summits. Luckily this one is going to be no restrictions, so I would recommend using the Proto rocket, which is probably going to be, the main vehicle most players are probably using here. But overall, I do have to say the Proto rocket is by far going to be a great jet sprint boat, and most likely by far one of the best ones to use overall as well. And then moving over to the next event, guys, is going to be a touring car race. So in this one, you actually get to use the Porsche 917K and or 917K. Regardless, I would say this car isn't going to be terrible. In fact, I would actually say the 917 is most likely going to be better than many of the other touring cars. It also does seem to handle pretty decently, but one thing I do have to mention, if you guys are jumping into this car, it's definitely not going to handle like the Lamborghini Superleggera, but my goodness, it's also not going to be terrible. Thank goodness for that handling update. It really did make many of these cars so much better. But moving over to the last event, guys, you will have to use a hypercar in a street race. And for this one, I actually use the Bugatti Veyron 16.4 Vitesse and or Vitesse. I do love using this car. It's so much dang fun to use. It's probably not going to be like the best vehicle to use because obviously most players are probably running the 300 Super Sport and or the new Divine Edition as well, because for one, the 300 Super Sport, despite that car actually being nerfed a few times, I would still say it's by far going to be one of the best hypercars in the game, and you're most likely going to be noticing that car tremendously in all of the leaderboards. But overall guys, I really did like the 5th anniversary summit here. This one's going to be a lot of fun. And definitely stay tuned for the news stories as well. I'm planning on posting those in the next few days, and I will also be posting all of the new cars in the coming weeks as well. But overall, guys, I do think a lot of players are going to like this summit, and don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more insight.